Yeah, well, first of all, thank you everybody for coming along tonight, and I'm really honoured and appreciate all of you for giving up an hour of your time, and I will give you as much value as I can, which you'll go away at the end knowing a little bit more about me, about my journey, and about conscious capitalism and how it can help the world and help you. I'm on a boat. It's April 2016, and I'm surrounded by Russians. We're in the middle of the Docklands. One of the Russians turns to me and says, "So what will the next 10 years bring?" I'm actually outside of Excel Centre. It's the day after UPW, Unleash the Power Within, has finished Tony Robbins' event. And I'm with the Russian team, Meet Partners team, all the senior management, and we're discussing how the event's gone. We're having a breakdown lunch. And we discussed, and I was asked actually to tell everybody about my experiences over the last 10, 11 years since I went to Tony Robbins the first time in 2004. And I spoke about when I went with Date with Destiny, and I did a 10-year plan, and I spoke about how my 10-year plan had come pretty well true, exactly 10 years. And this is why this gentleman turned around to me and asked me what I was going to do for the next 10 years. And an answer sprung into my mind immediately, and without thinking, I spoke it. And I said, I want to be a catalyst for world peace. And then I stopped and thought about what I just said. I thought, well, hang on a minute, that's a pretty big mountain to climb, and I've got no idea where to even start. But now I put it out there to a group of people, I have to see where this journey takes me. Let's roll forward another couple of years, April 2018. I'm actually inside Excel on the second day of the Tony Robbins UPW Unleash the Power Within. And Gil, the guy who I told you with, who set up Meet Partners, comes over to me and says, "Steve, I want to introduce you to someone. I want to introduce you to this guy, Michael Karlholm. He's a Swedish guy. And you guys will get on, but I don't know what you're going to talk about." And he just left us. So we went and had a coffee. Michael is an absolutely super peaceful guy. He didn't want to be near all the noise. It was a bit too much for him. The energy was too much for him. So we went and had a coffee. We sat down, we started talking, and we realized after about 2 or 3 sentences that we were both devoted to being catalysts for world peace. We found this was an alignment that we had, and we discussed and we came up with an idea, and we came up with this idea to have an online event with 500 million people online on one day to celebrate peace. And we believed that if we could do this, we could actually create a shift in global consciousness that would affect the world. And I spoke about this actually at Carl's event, at the Yes Group event. A few days later, I stood up in front of 250 people and told them. So now I was just putting it out there. And my journey was really beginning, but where was I going to find peace? Michael told me, start within. And I'd already looked into meditation. So I was starting a transcendental meditation course, and Michael invited me to go to a place called Lindau am Bodensee in Germany to see a woman called Preet Haji from ECAM, who was this Indian philosopher, meditator, and he said it was going to be very important for me. So we went along there. He got me a front row seat with my name on it. I was an absolute VIP, and it was lovely to have that. But the benefit of that situation was that I got to meet Preet Haji. I got to meet all the leading people with her, and I also got to meet the organizers, the German organizers. And a couple had said to me, a guy called Dr. Jan Bellerman said to me he was coming to Barcelona later in the year for a conference from Conscious Capitalism. And I said, "What's Conscious Capitalism?" And he told me a little bit about it, and he said it'd be great if I could come along because I live in Barcelona. But I couldn't because my parents were visiting that weekend. But I still met them for lunch the day after the event. And they told me all about it. And it was really exciting to me. What I heard, I thought, wow, this is stuff that I've done in my past, a lot of it. It's things that I want to do more of in the future. And I can see how bringing this to businesses, working with organizations and bringing them to a more conscious way of doing business would actually affect world peace. It would make the world more peaceful. There would be more abundance in the world. There would be less conflict and more collaboration. All of these things that will bring a more peaceful way of living and help to educate the world in a better way of doing business. Since then, I went into Berlin the following year to the European Conscious Capitalism event. I went on a day after course and I met a guy called Thomas Eckschmidt who runs Conscious Business Journey. I spent 2 years working with him and now I'm a certified Conscious Business Journey change agent. And I really believe I've learned a lot about this. And this year I've had the great honor, Dominic and Esther, who are here with us, invited me to join their Conscious Enterprises Network as a facilitator. So that's fabulous because I'm really looking forward to the way that all of these groups are aligning, bringing them together, because the more people that come together, the more we can affect businesses and everybody around us to really bring a better future for the world. So that's how I discovered Conscious Capitalism. And now I'm going to just, if you'll give me a second to share my screen, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. Before we talk about conscious capitalism, I think we should get a better understanding of capitalism. And what I would like is, I'd like everyone just to write down in the chat box, what does capitalism, in one word, please, only one word, what does capitalism represent? What does it mean to you? What is it? Yeah, when you hear capitalism, what does it say to you? If you can just drop that down in the chat box. Power, money, excess. Anyone else? Resource exploitation. Those are more than one word, but okay, control. Okay, that's enough, because what I would like to do now is just show you, these are the most popular words that usually come up. Profit, power, control, competition, domination, exploitation. Quite a lot of those words were words that you guys brought up as well. So it's easy to see that this is what capitalism means to us. And they're not all great words. There's some of them actually feel a little bit uncomfortable for me, that the whole world is operating to these words and to these, aligning with these values. But the question is this all that capitalism has done? I mean, we've had capitalism for around 200 years now, and let's have a little look at what's happened during those 200 years of capitalism. Around 157 years ago, 1865, slavery was abolished in America. People started working and paying wages rather than just having slaves going and taking people. In fact, capitalism, before capitalism, if you wanted something, the general rule was you took your army and you went wherever you went and you took whatever you wanted. You raped, pillaged, did whatever was necessary. And then came capitalism, where we started dealing and trading and bargaining. So there's definitely was an advantage that happened when capitalism started. If we look here, we can see the decades when women obtained the right to vote. Again, this all happened since capitalism. This all happened as education grew, as people became more literate, people started to learn, were able to talk. There wasn't so much subservience. And we see in 1920 in America, also most of Europe was the 1920s, 30s, some countries the 40s. Unfortunately, if we look, the red Saudi Arabia there, right in the middle, 2011, they granted women the right to vote. So it's still a slow process. Let's have another look at what's happened since capitalism came in. So this is a graph I'm going to draw for you, where we have life expectancy on the right-hand side in age, in years, and then at the bottom we have the gross earnings per annum. And if we look on this, at the bottom left is the poor and sick area. At the top right is the rich and healthy area. And if we go into here, we can see in the year 1000, pretty well everyone was sitting in that very, very bottom corner. The dots represent countries. The bigger the country, the bigger the circle. So if we look here, life expectancy, 25 to 35, gross income pretty low, everyone was pretty poor, and they weren't expected to live very long. So when we move forward to 1800, which is around the start of capitalism, we can see that things are beginning to improve. People are beginning to, some countries are showing that they're growing in GDP, and the age limit has gone up a little bit. But let's have a look what's happened since capitalism. Roll forward to 2018, and we see a massive change. We see that people are expected, life expectancy now is in the late 50s at the very bottom, but really around 60, 70, even up into the 80s. Wealth has spread much more. There are more countries now that have got a lot more wealth. Education is better, literacy is better. People have jobs. They're not working for nothing anymore. And if we look here, this is a graph that shows people living in extreme poverty, again, since 1820. And if we look, we had 1 billion people, and the majority in 1820 were living below the poverty line, in extreme poverty. If we look as the graph moves on, as the number of people rises, so does the number of people in poverty till around about the 1960s, late 60s. And then we see it cuts down, and we see a sharp increase in the number of people, the population, and a fairly sharp decrease in actual number, not just a percentage, but the actual number of people living in extreme poverty. This has all happened thanks to capitalism. So not everything about capitalism is bad. But we have to look at how can we improve it, because what we do know is if we carry on the course we're going, probably there's not going to be much left in the future. Resources will run out. We have this extreme issue that we're now at 7+ billion people. So that rising number of population means that resources are getting fewer. We have to look at how can we look after this and not just be a world that lives on profit at all costs. This is where conscious capitalism comes in. If we look at conscious capitalism, it's built on 4 tenets: higher purpose, stakeholder orientation, conscious leadership, and conscious culture. Let's go into these 4 tenets a little bit closer and understand a bit closer. The first one is purpose. When a company has a higher purpose, it knows what it's doing and where it's going. If we go back to the Simon Sinek Golden Circle speech, if you remember, he talks about the why being how successful companies are now making themselves and the direction that they're going to go. But it's not just about knowing your why, it's about sharing your why, sharing your purpose. Now, some people might say, well, the purpose of business is to make money, make profit. That's our purpose. But I look at that and I say, well, it's a little bit like the human being. When we're born, we have to produce blood. If we don't produce blood, we die. It's that simple. We need blood to go around our body, to supply everything, to keep us alive. We need a healthy blood flow. It's the same with the business. It needs cash. It needs a healthy cash flow to survive. If it doesn't have a healthy cash flow, it will go under, even if it's doing great business. So it does have to have a focus on cash flow. It does have to have a focus on making money. But that can't be the only thing it's focused on. If we look at a company I wrote about recently, a company called Ecosia, they're a search engine that's minuscule compared to Google, but they are set up as a steward ownership company. There are no owners. It's a trust. And all their money, 80% of their profits, go to their purpose, which is to reforest the world. Every time you click on a search with Ecosia, you plant a tree. Well, they plant a tree for you. Have a look at it. If you don't use it already, ecosia.com. I really recommend it. It's great. It doesn't find everything. Sometimes you have to go across to another search engine, but it's based off of Bing, and they plant a tree. How great is that? So when companies set up with purpose, and this company Ecosia has grown to be I believe it's the biggest tech company in Germany now, or certainly one of the biggest tech companies in Germany. It's amazing what they've done in a short time since they've existed. The next tenet is stakeholder orientation. Who are the stakeholders of a business? Not the shareholders. The shareholders are one of the stakeholders, but the stakeholders, they're the staff, the people who work for the company. They're the clients and customers. They're also stakeholders. They're also affected by everything that the company does. The service providers, the people who supply, if it's dealing in retail or stuff like that, the products. All of these people are connected to the company, but it goes beyond that, because where are the products manufactured? They're also stakeholders. Who are the family of the people who work for you? I mean, if you've got someone working for you, their kids might be sick and they can't afford to pay the medical bills or something, and you've given them health insurance for themselves, but you need to give it for the whole family maybe, because that way they're not going to take time off, they're not going to be stressed, they're not going to have a downtime in working for you. Stakeholders everywhere need to be looked after. And of course, the biggest stakeholder is the planet. If we don't look after our planet, we don't have anywhere to do business. So it's really important that we take into account everything and everyone that our company, every touch point that it has, so that we look after and bear in mind how we are affected and what's our impact. Conscious leadership. I don't believe a company can be conscious if it doesn't have a conscious leader. Even if people within the company want to take it to a more conscious level of doing business, if the leadership is not buying into it, they will block it, they will find ways around it, they won't understand it. So it's very important that we deal with the leadership side very first of all. We need conscious leaders. We need to add to people why they need to get out of this fear, control, correction, criticizing, blaming way of doing business and shift to a more observation, gratitude, connection, even love. And I use the word love because I truly believe that a conscious leader loves what they do, they love who they do it for, and they love who they do it with. And yet we're so scared to use the word love in business. Crazy, really. And the last area is culture, conscious culture. It's all about making sure that people are happy working for you, that you build a culture where people want to come into work, where people want to do their best, where they're treated well, where they're encouraged to grow, they're encouraged to be leaders themselves, where you ask them for feedback. Because sometimes the feedback from workers can actually help you grow or see things that when you're sitting in an office you don't notice. There's a great example from a book I was reading called Everybody Matters, and they talk about how they work with their culture. But there was one thing that really resonated, and I was playing volleyball, beach volleyball the other week, and yeah, I haven't played since I was at school, so that's quite a while ago, and I've forgotten most of the things of how to play. So there I was playing beach volleyball, and I kept on hitting, I don't know if you know, but you're supposed to hit it off your forearms, but I kept on hitting it off my fists, and the ball was going everywhere. And my friend kept on saying to me, hit it with your fist again, you hit it with your fist again, you hit it with your fist again. And I going, I know I'm hitting it with my fist, I can see it's going off the wrong way. And I said, I've just read in a book that if you criticize someone, what you're doing is you're anchoring that bad behavior. So every time you're telling me I'm hitting it with my fist, what's my brain getting? The message is hit with your fist. I said, try doing it the other way. Tell me when I'm doing it right, nothing special. Just tell me I'm getting it right when I get it right. So we switched, and he told me a couple of times, yep, that's it. You're getting it right now. That's it. And 5 minutes later, he stopped and he said, it's really incredible. We've been playing 5 minutes since you said to change how we're doing things. And now you're getting it right nearly every single time. This is how we can work with our people. This is how we can improve culture, to take on ideas like this, to look at how we can stop criticizing and start actually recognizing when people just do the job they're supposed to do. Enforce that, anchor that, get them aligned and get them then to grow. How do we grow them? How do we nurture them? How do we give them the opportunity to maybe take courses. I had a great time when I was in Russia. It was fantastic. I needed to learn Excel. I went on an Excel course. If I needed to learn the language, I was sent on the language course. My company that I was working for there absolutely understood that to get the best out of me, they needed to support me, serve me, and grow me. So these are the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism. And here I've just got an idea of how we can shift from the very male-dominated characteristics of current capitalism, as we saw before: profit, power, control, competition, domination, exploitation, and bring in the more feminine characteristics to balance this out. I don't want to get rid of those because they are necessary. We do need to make profit. We do need to have an element of control. We need to be powerful. We need these things. There is competition always, but let's balance it. Let's balance profit with purpose. Let's balance power with love. Let's balance control with support, competition with collaboration, domination with creation, and exploitation. Let's bring in sustainability, because we cannot keep draining our resources as we have been. We need to be more conscious and aligned with our purpose. We need to be better understanding what everyone's purpose is. So if you're in business, whatever you're doing, have a look. What is your purpose? Tell people about it. And you'll see how people will come along and help you to achieve what you want. People who are aligned will come and work for you, and they'll stay working for you, because they're not just working for money. They came to join you because they agree and are aligned with what you're doing. If we can make these shifts, and they're not great big shifts, but if we can make them, perhaps we can turn around and continue to benefit from capitalism, but start to benefit even more from conscious capitalism. And I will now open the floor to any questions that anyone may have. I think Carl's going to moderate that for us, and
I am.
I'd like to hear from you.
I am. So that was a great presentation, Steve. Thank you for taking us through that. I enjoyed it. I learned some things, and yeah, so that last slide with all the different pieces on there, all the different words, that gave me lots to think about. So thanks for that. We've got a couple of hands raised already, and Steve mentioned about using the reactions button and putting your hand up like that if you wanted to say something, or if you did have a question. So that means I can see in some sort of order who put their hands up first. So I believe someone put their hand up and put it down, but the first person to put their hand up was Gaz. Gaz, have you got a question for Steve, please?
I have, and thank you, Carl. First of all, Steve, that was a fantastic presentation, very well explained, and definitely highlighting the points of what was, what is, and where we're going. What I love about what you said there, one of the things that, one word that I will tell you where I'm feeling it, and I don't know whether it's a British mentality or a mentality in this people with power don't go, giving that soft sort of look to it, but the word love, because we all in our life need the love, whether it's in love in the work to be accepted, the contribution that we give to be counted, and everyone matters, and everything matters, and every story matters, and everything where we're going matters who we go with. So people have always been, can I say this, in the British mentality mostly, is always been, don't be so soppy. Yeah, don't be so soppy, all this. We're in this business. We're in LinkedIn, and we're all professional people, and all this. Don't be so soppy about getting all your personal stuff. But you know something? I realized when I was doing a test on LinkedIn as well, because you have business people driving business forward, getting e-commerce, and I come from a financial background. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're human beings with a heart that beats, that's something we are passionate about. We've worked, took time, committed, and we want to reach another heart that actually humanity matters and making a change in the world that we live in, which is our home, which is the planet Earth. I just want to ask you, that's my take on it with that word that stuck to me with all that. And I love the comparison to what was to what is. If people were to get more in love with not only what they do, with the people they do it with, the passion that they have, how can we make that shift? of the mentality of don't be so soppy. We're in business. Don't get all lovey-dovey on us. How do you kind of want to answer that one, Steve?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I thank you, Gaz. And I think we have to take this out of just the UK. Having worked in Russia and in Spain, and spent time in China and several other countries, Italy, working and seeing very, very different cultures. But as you say, this same belief throughout that that love is a dirty word in business. We can't use it. I don't know why. It just doesn't make sense, because if we come from love, if we do things from love, so I think for me, it's about bringing more and more awareness, getting people to understand that things can be done in a different way, that there are still things that we can take forward from what's happened in the past, the good things, and still use those. But we need to shift a little bit. And it's really about showing it. I think when more and more people start to show loving in the way that they do their business towards their clients, towards the customer service, towards the people who are working with them, making sure that they're looked after, making sure that the culture within a business is grown towards supporting and nurturing, rather than just putting people in a box and a pigeonhole, then we will see a difference. And that can only come from people really buying into the purpose, because we actually can't love just making money. People might say they do, but actually what the truth is, they might love spending the money or what they buy with the money, but just making money. If I said to you, okay, you can make £1 million, £1 million every week, but you can't spend it, but you can make it. You say, no, that's no good. It's profit, but it's just going to sit and you can watch it grow, but you're never allowed to touch it. So therefore, it's not making the money that's important. It's being able to do the things that you believe the money will bring for you. So if we shift that and let people know that when they love, they can actually do lots of things that they love without actually making any money. That, as I say, doesn't mean we don't want money. We have to have our cash flow like we have to have our blood flow, but it shouldn't be the main purpose. And when we shift to purpose, we'll see a lot more love going on, because people will be working at places that they love to work.
That's beautiful. Beautifully said. I like that, cash flow and the blood flow. I love that term a lot. And you're absolutely right. And, the value of what we're delivering, what we're doing, and what we're passionate has bigger value overall in making the change than any pounds and pence as well. But like we also know that pounds and pence actually help maneuver certain resources that we need to make the bigger difference. But I appreciate that take, Stephen. You always speak such beautifully from the heart anyway, and this conscious living and conscious life and being mindful of the situations, certainly this is a beautiful topic, and thank you so much for giving me a contribution on that.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, yes, thank you. That was great, Gaz. And you seem to have stimulated lots of questions. There is now a lineup of people wanting to ask Steve a question, which is great. So thank you for that. JW, you have a question. Can you ask Steve the question you had in mind?
Sure. Thanks, Carl. Steve, yeah, really, really interesting and insightful. Lots to consider. You were talking about balance profit with purpose. I know that there are some really interesting white papers that are being produced by banks and the like. As Conscious Capitalism, have you actually got any numbers which shows that when companies look at a beyond profit, when they look at balancing profit with purpose, that actually it enhances their bottom line? Have you seen any of those? Have you got those metrics? Have you got those stats?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of stats around that. Certainly, there's several books. The original Conscious Capitalism book by John Mackey has a lot of information in there and stats around companies that have done really well. Also, Raj Sisodia has written several books on this, and he speaks about firms of endearment, and there are these different companies that you can see, and if you look at the tracking, that have done much better than the standard, the S&P companies and the other companies on the big stock market. So if you look at how these companies are faring, there's a lot of groups around. So as I mentioned, there's Conscious Enterprise Network who are with us today, Conscious Capitalism, B Corp, Triple Bottom Line. There's lots of different formats of a similar sort of idea of how we can move to a more conscious way of doing business. And more we're seeing these companies being very, very profitable. And one great example that I've got is a company called Ben & Jerry's. Now, is there anyone here who's not heard of Ben & Jerry's? And any ice cream lovers who do not love Ben & Jerry's? I had the great fortune back in 1990. I was in America. I was living in Boston for a couple of months, and I went to Vermont to ski. And where we were skiing was very close to the Ben & Jerry's factory. So me and a couple of friends decided we'd go on their factory tour before we went skiing. So we left a day early and went on the factory tour. Now, to say the least, it was a bit, it reminded me of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I felt like I got the golden ticket. You went in there, they had a video where they showed how Ben & Jerry's started out and did all these things, and they took us on this tour. And then they told us about the fact that they'd just been voted the second best employer in America. This was back in 1990. Now, Ben & Jerry's are a B Corp, one of the first B Corp companies. They are still, although they've been taken over by Unilever, they still run their own management and the way that they do things. But at that time, back in 1990, this was a real eye-opener for me. And they were talking about how staff were rotated. So everyone on the production floor was rotated. So they never got bored with their job. They were given opportunities to grow and then educated, sent on courses, so that they were expecting the people from the production floor to move up to management level. This was all built into how they work. But the thing that got me the best was the fact that every week, they gave all the staff all the 40 cartons of ice cream. So if it had been misprinted or there was something wrong, nothing wrong with the ice cream, just the packaging. But they were given to the staff, and they were given for free and divided amongst the staff. But Ben & Jerry realized that this wasn't a great idea because they were all going to get fat if they ate so much ice cream. So they also gave them all a free membership of the gym. Now, of course, they didn't force them to go to the gym, and they didn't force them to eat the ice cream. And I'm sure there were some who just ate the ice cream and didn't do the gym. But they thought about it. They had this thought that, okay, if we're going to give them this free ice cream, we should also give them something to balance it and keep them fit and give them the opportunity. And this really, still to this day, and that was, as I say, 1990, registers with me, because this was them thinking not just to give a bonus, but also thinking how that bonus was going to work and how can we balance it out to be the best for our staff so they get all the benefits.
Yeah, awesome. JW, did you have anything follow up on that?
That's really good. I've got another question, but I want to let other people ask, so I'll hold fire. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll come back to you, JW. Dominic, you have a question. Could you share it with Stephen, please?
Yes, sure. Yes, just an observation first. When capitalism was thriving from the 18th century to the last century, we could see that there was a very clear alignment between capitalism and societal and national organizations. What has become more and more obvious in this new century is that there is a breakdown of traditional capitalism and societal and political organizations. So the question really is, taking into account that this process is going to get worse. I mean, we know, for example, with environmental issues, with a number of people, which are inhabiting this planet, which is forever growing as we see it now, we are going to hit some very drastic challenges. So the question really is, where is conscious capitalism moving towards? I mean, is there any strategies in conscious capitalism to try to resolve these challenges? Because as a conscious leader, as a conscious capitalist, I would expect that we ought to actually look at the future. And 50 years ago, the future we're looking at now, which is more challenging than the one we had 50 years ago, we could ignore it. Now we cannot. what we didn't do 50 years ago, we got to do it today. So where is conscious capitalism sitting there? What is it doing to actually resolve this challenge?
Well, the organization, obviously, it's headquartered in the USA, and they're doing quite a lot of work in the USA around bringing meetings and sharing information to help in this way. In Europe, I personally, I believe conscious capitalism in Europe has been struggling recently. So they're, you know, it's sort of had a good growth a couple of years ago, and I think not being able to have the conferences because of COVID, I think this has stunted the growth a little bit, and we're seeing it that there's also other new enterprises building and other conscious. So there's Conscious Business Netherlands, which is an offspring from conscious capitalism. There's different groups coming up, and I, as you know, Dominic, I'm very, very keen to bring all these groups together, because for me, it's all about unity. It's all about us all aligning and understanding that our common purpose is the same, whether it's Chen, your group, the Conscious Enterprise Network, whether it's B Corps, who I do quite a lot of work with B Corps and people from B Corps, whether it's conscious capitalism. There's obviously going to be certain countries that are going to have stronger representation. So we'll see a different drive. And I think America's the best for conscious capitalism at the moment. But I really would love to see everyone getting around the table, talking together, bringing all these groups together so that we start to align and work together and collaborate, because I don't think we're going to be able to build going forward unless we do collaborate and unless we have a bigger voice that's really going to take everybody to the next level and get everybody outside of our small groups that understand this to start to understand the benefits and take action.
Thank you, Dominic. That was a great contribution and a great question. The next person who's ready to ask a great, powerful question is Rosa. Rosa, would you like to share?
Sure, thank you so much. Stephen, I have to say I'm deeply touched by your message, and it so is in alignment with my message, as you know. But I'm going to start out to say, you know, it's unfortunate that the true virus that we've been facing for years is the media. So we have not been privy to the information that we ought to have, which is there are a lot of large corporations that are doing great work and that are highly successful because of introducing love and nurturing into their companies. However, my concern is with the current state of business today, we have a smaller percentage of large corporations making a difference. And we have perhaps about 80% of entrepreneurs and small business owners that we are relying upon to make the difference in the world, which has started already. Now, we have different groups of people that work with them, consultants, speakers, coaches, books, etc. This is like a two-part question. I don't even think the first part is viable. Like, who do you see making the biggest impact? I really think it's split between all four. But my concern as a coach is, do you see the role of a coach really transforming at this time to be able to cause that shift in individuals and smaller companies? Most of the coaches are working with smaller companies, in my experience. Do you see the role of a coach needing to be changed to bring them to this level so that we can coach more on alignment and purpose and spreading that out? How do you see that?
It's a great question, and thank you, Rosa. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know you joined from America, so it's lovely to have an international group here. I think the coaches and consultants, mentors, we all have a job to do, and we're, you know, unless the coaches already aligned themselves, it's going to be difficult for them to be coaching in this way. But I think also, going back to what I was talking about, conscious leadership, it's important that the leaders and the people that they're coaching are already also thinking in that way. They might not be fully aligned, they might not be fully aware, but it's important that they already have the resolve and the forethought to say, I want to do this and I want to get to a point of a more conscious business, and how can I do that? And then they come to a coach or they come to a consultant who can say, okay, this is how we start. Let's sit down. Let's look for the purpose of your business. If you know it, let's share that beyond just your head office. Let's share it globally. Let's make sure everyone who's, all your stakeholders are aware of your purpose. That way, yeah, you're going to lose some people on the way. Some people won't align with your purpose, but that's fine, because they're actually going to be the ones who are going to be within the company causing issues anyway. So it's best to flush them out and make sure that you've got people, but you're going to attract new people in their place who are going to come and join because they're aligned. And then it's the place of the coaches and the consultants and the mentors to work with those leaders and get them to push forward, get them to know that they're not alone, that if they work this way, they're not going to, too many people think I'm too small, I'm not going to make a difference. What difference can I make? But if we all think that way, of course, we make no difference. So it's very important that we all get aligned, we all buy into each other's purpose and direction that they're going on, and work together. So coaches working with leaders, finding each other so that they can really make a bigger impact and get better results.
You know what? That's beautiful, because you did answer my question for me, very indirectly, but directly, because what it really tells me as a coach is the qualifying process has to be really clear and crisp. So if we can identify the change makers and the leaders quicker, of course, that expands the reach. And I read, I can't remember where, but just recently that they're calling them energizers. And so, yeah, I've started using that term. We're going to look for the energizers so we can do the Star Trek approach, energize more people, the right people, to get the right job done and dispense it out to the right groups. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
I can just see all those Energizer batteries now running all over the place. The little rabbits.
Yeah. Well, we'll be looking for them. Absolutely. So that's where matchmaking for me is important. And as you know, that's one of the things I do is matchmake. So I get people to align with other people who are aligned. And so alignment, when you talk about alignment, it really resonated with what we need to do more of.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Rosa. That was brilliant. Thank you for that. Robert, you have a question for Steve.
Okay, it's actually not so much a question. First of all, I just want to express appreciation for talking about this, because I think it is absolutely fundamental. I mean, we had a conversation last week, and part of the reason for that conversation was that I was in very strong alignment with what you are talking about here on purpose. This is something I've been trying to get people to understand for a long time, and I've got one or two numbers that I can give JW when he was asking about numbers, because I do have some of those statistics. But first of all, I just had an email that came in yesterday, which from a personal point of view rather than a corporate point of view, I think expressed this very well. And it said, the passage I wrote down was, while money can't buy you happiness, no money can't buy you very much at all. So you kind of need the capitalism, but you need the conscious capitalism that goes with it. And it went on to say financial security is fundamental to anyone's sense of well-being. If all you have is things, then you don't really have much at all. Love, fulfillment, purpose, divinity, kindness, friends or family, these virtues carry a value that cannot be measured. And I think when you put those two things, when you put that together, with you actually can create passion within any audience that you've got. So if you're a business, not just an audience, your stakeholders, as you were so rightly saying, because every stakeholder can buy into a purpose where you're doing something to make the world a better place or to touch the lives of the people you deal with positively. And there are some statistics about this that I do have in front of me, and that is that some years ago, the head of global marketing for Procter & Gamble was a guy called Jim Stengel, and he noticed that whenever he was motivated or inspired by a company or brand, it was always to do with purpose. And he then commissioned a study identifying about 30,000 brands around the world that were growing disproportionately to their service category. And they did a big in-depth study on this, on the 25 highest performers. And every one of those turned out to be driven by a higher purpose. And that had an impact within Procter & Gamble, but also Jim Collins and Jerry Porras, who built the book who wrote the book some years ago, Built to Last. And some of you have probably read that book, but if you haven't, it's still a good book. They discovered that organizations driven by purpose and values outperformed the general market 15-1, and they also outperformed the companies they're being compared with 6-1. Now, this is very, very significant. Harvard Business School, the couple of the professors there studied companies across 20 industries for 4 years and discovered that strong cultures based on value and purpose grew revenues 4 times faster than the companies that didn't, because they were able to get the passion of everybody involved, and you've got all that extra energy being directed towards whatever they're trying to achieve. They also had stock prices growing 20 times faster and a profit performance significantly higher than comparison companies in similar industries. And there's other studies showing that companies that put stakeholders ahead of shareholders are profoundly changing the way business is being done. And I think this is something that's going to happen even more as we carry on our current path. But companies that choose to put their employees and customers and stakeholders first outperform pure profit-driven competitors 8-1 on the stock market based on that study. So there are some numbers for you to quantify it. So it's not just touchy-feely stuff. It is study after study. It's been determined it's one of the most important ingredients in a high-performing company. And you bring everybody with you when you have that purpose clearly defined. And as Stephen says, people that don't fit those values, they shouldn't be part of the organization, and they should only be hiring people that actually genuinely have those values, not just for a job interview, but actually they need to be tested to show that they genuinely have those values and they align with that purpose. And if you do that, you don't look back. And this is something I've been beating the drum about for years, and is behind some of the very high results that some of my clients have achieved. We've managed to get them to look at the world that way. So I hope you don't mind me just making that comment.
No, thank you very much, Robert. And, thanks for bringing the stats. I'll have you as my stats man at future meetings. But no, great, and hopefully that answered your question, JW, as well. Sort of some pretty big numbers. I mean, we're not talking about small numbers; it's pretty big numbers, and they're coming from
it's significant.
Some pretty important business schools who are putting them out there.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing the passion there as well, Robert. We could see you really got into that. You're a numbers person.
I'm not a numbers person, but again, there's two sides of it, because when people buy into something, they buy into it emotionally, but then they have to justify that purchase. Then it goes into logic. So you have to then quantify things with numbers when it comes to the logical part of it. So the two there's a balance, but there's a time for each. But they're quite complementary to each other, especially when you know how effective those numbers are. I mean, you can make a very strong case. Awesome.
Thanks so much. Thanks for that. I'm going to move on now to the next question. And we've got Dave Plunkett. Nice to see you, Dave, and welcome. Have you got a question for Steve?
Yeah, hi, right. So, Stephen, you know how on board I am with all this stuff whenever we talk, and obviously the collaboration pit is particularly close to my heart. I did have a question, which was a big grand one around the struggles with media and things. So but I think Rose has probably covered that one nicely. So I'm going to ask something a little bit more practical, and hopefully is a nice way of kind of rounding off the questions. Is what's the kind of one thing that any of us can do that's most going to drive conscious capitalism forward? What's the one thing that you would want us to all go and do after hearing and being inspired by your words?
Well, I think the one thing probably, and it's come up a few times, Robert's mentioned it as well, is if you don't already know the purpose of your business or the purpose of what you're doing, would be to look into ways of finding that. And there's various different tools or online tools. Obviously, you can go to coaches or consultants to find this out, but I would really be finding out what your purpose is, and then displaying it, talking about it, sharing it, and making it the center of everything that you do. Because when purpose becomes at the center of everything you do, that's when everyone can see it, that's when it becomes authentic, and that's when people will align with it and support you. This is the big thing. It's a bit, if you go back to when I stated my purpose to be a catalyst for world peace, what happened? People introduced me to people. People took me to places where my network in these 5 years has grown enormously around peace-loving people. And I've spoken about it at events. I've had the opportunity to share with people. We're working on online peace festivals. I've worked with ECAM on a festival where I think they got around 40 million last year. So, you know, it's moving in the right direction. If I hadn't spoken about it, people wouldn't be talking to me about it, and I wouldn't be now aligned with people who are making a difference. So find your purpose, talk about it, share it as much as possible, and stay aligned with it and stay always accountable to it. That way you'll see a big difference immediately, the big shift. And the rest of them bring along as well, because you'll realize that just falls into place. I know you, Dave, I mean, I don't have to talk to you about collaboration and alignment. You are the man. So thanks for the question, and hopefully that's answered it for you.
Nice, great questions. Thanks, Dave.
I think as we are bang on 8 o'clock and no one else has their hands up, I think we've timed this absolutely spectacularly. So all I really have left to say is a big thank you for Carl for coming along and helping to facilitate and just run things in the background for me. That was really helpful. A big thank you to all of you for coming along, giving up your evening and an hour of your time to come and listen to me, and hopefully you've learned something. There's been some value there, and we can continue the conversation. Let's bring this forward, not just to this group here in this Zoom room, but let's take this out there, take the message out, share it as much as we can, and really see the change that we can be part of. Because if we don't do it, no one will do it. And a saying that goes back a long way for me is nothing improves without change. Let's go and make the change happen.
Awesome. Great job, Steve. Thanks very much. We appreciate you.